Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Generation Millennium. I am your host, Jeffro Madness, and today we'll be going over visual Braille, which I know may sound a little controversial because this is a language, if you want to call it that, that's meant for blind or visually impaired individuals. But sometimes they don't have access to the physical versions, especially with the world in its current condition, even though it's recovering. So I just wanted to make this to help those of them along, and anyone else is interested in learning. So the first thing you want to know about Braille is that it comes in two different versions. The first of which, the original, is known as eBay. And no, I do not mean the website. The initials are EBAE, which stands for English Braille American Edition. But apparently those behind Braille at the association didn't like that, so they decided to make a new version that's more closely relatable to the printed version. Like, literally closer to the printed version to make it more relatable and more international. So they made the new version known as UEB, the Unified English Braille Code. And while there are differences between them, especially when it comes to contractions later on down the road or different punctuation marks, the alphabet is essentially the same. Or rather, it's completely the same. So that's what we'll be starting with in Lesson 1, which we will be going over the letters A, B, C, D, and E. But before we actually learn the different alphabetical symbols, the first thing you want to note is that on the page, I put the letters both in print and Braille versions from left to right. You can see them there. But what you want to understand is that how the Braille works. So each individual character, as you can see, those are called cells. And normally each character will take up only one cell, which are those combinations of 6 dots. And going from top to bottom, left to right, like you would read in English, the dots are numbered. So in this case, for the letter A, that one dot is the first dot, dot 1. So that's just the letter A. And then next to that, the letter B is represented by dots 1 and 2. Then the letter C in the middle are dots 1 and 4. The letter D, dots 1, 4, 5. And finally, the letter E is represented by dots 1, 5. And you may think that some of these dots look like something or form some kind of pattern. No. You do not want to memorize Braille by patterns. Because even though you're seeing this visually and you may think that's easy, there will be lots of different letters, symbols, words, contractions later on that have similar shapes to them. So if you try memorizing by shapes alone, you are going to be greatly confused. So you need to memorize what each dot or characteristic, contraction, by the dot combinations themselves, by the numbers. So once again, A, dot 1, B, dots 1, 2, C, dots 1, 4, D, dots 1, 4, 5, and finally, the letter E, dots 1, 5. And the best way to put Braille into practice is to simply look at this. You can pause the video if you need, but essentially just to put letters into combinations in practice. So for example, we have the word bead spelled out B-E-A-D. So you can just imagine, if you couldn't actually see the screen, just which dot combinations that would consist of, followed by other words like aced, A-C-E-D, dace, D-A-C-E, and bad, B-A-D, or lastly, I don't know how to pronounce that, dace, das. English is just wonderful, listen guys, D-A-C-E. So while those of you who are watching this video can probably definitely see these different Braille words and the combinations, for those of you who can't see the screen, practice just makes perfect, and the more times you listen and practice, the more proficient you'll get at Braille, just like everything else. It's just a matter of time, and as of the day I'm uploading this, I'm actually a average Braille student. as far as I'm understanding, the physical books have like 3 volumes, and I'm only like halfway through the second volume, so yeah, it takes a while. But on the subject of learning more, as it turns out, the numbering system in Braille is actually in conjunction with that of the letters themselves. So the letter A, B, C, D, and E also represent the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. However, if you're feeling the visible version of Braille or just looking at it in general, you know when a number is coming up because all numbers will have a special symbol in front of them to let you know that you're reading a number, not a letter. And the dots for that number symbol are represented by dots 3, 4, 5, 6. Again, and while that may look like an L to you, for those of you who are looking at this visually, do not memorize by the shape. Memorize by the dot combinations themselves, as that combination of dots, once again, 3, 4, 5, 6, is the Braille symbol that represents that you're about to read a number. If you don't see that symbol, then you're just reading regular letters, words, as you normally would. So keep that in mind. And while it may be a bit confusing to go between numbers and letters, especially when they pretty much represent the same thing, trust me, again, it just takes time and practice, just like everything else. You'll get it eventually with enough repetition. So then, number symbol followed by dot 1 is the number 1. Number symbol dots 1, 2 is the number 2. Numerical symbol with dots 1, 4 is 3. Numerical symbol with dots 1, 4, 5 is number 4. And finally, number symbol with dots 1, 5 is number 5. And even though they may share the same symbol in dot combinations with letters, it's best to memorize them separately so you don't get yourself confused, especially since later on you want to be reading as fluently as possible. It's just easier to connect them separately than to associate them with one another. And well, we'll cover it for the first lesson of Braille. So thank you all for watching. If any of you found this information helpful, useful, and you want to see me do future videos, I'll be happy to upload these as soon as I possibly can. I plan to do videos like this possibly weekly, or even bi-weekly, or more quickly depending on how much time I can free up on my schedule. So please leave comments, like, and if you want to see future videos as soon as possible, subscribe, as I will be uploading information like this to my other social medias, such as Facebook, Discord, and possibly even setting a Patreon to anyone who's interested. So, once again, thank you all for watching, and if you want to see more information like this in the future, just remember, this is the Generation Millennium, and I'm Joe from Madness, signing out.